Welcome everybody to the Node Foundation CTC meeting, November 9th, 2016. We'll start out with a stand-up. So let's go through the list. Just going to look through, so I don't think I see Anna, Bradley.
I'm here, just a bit late.
Sorry, okay, Anna?
Yeah, but I don't think I really got anything to report. Mostly just checking up on issues a bit.
Okay. Bradley? Yeah, I don't think Bradley's here. Ben, I don't see in the list. Chalker here. Chalker, are you there? I think you're next.
Yes. Actually, nothing significant this week.
Okay.
Still collecting some data on the buffer issue. I mean the deprecation. And nothing else significant.
Okay. I'm just going down through the list. Colin, I think you're next.
Yes, audio problems.
Oh yeah, okay, I'll get it. I cut the v7.1.0 release and been looking more into the Mac installer issues. Next is Jeremiah.
I did routine miscellaneous POs issues stuff. I might be, or maybe someone else is doing a Node GIP release soon. I opened a release issue for that since one hasn't been done in a while, and we have some stuff built up for it. I'm not sure how much I covered last week, but I did a bunch of Node.js GitHub bot work. There's a script that we might be putting into production soon if we think it's good, and that is going to attempt backporting pull requests so that we can get a do not land on label for the current branch. So that would be for v7 if a patch does not cleanly apply onto it from master, and it will then on the opposite end of things for LTS branches label it for LTS watch if it does land cleanly. Other than that, I started live streaming Node Core open source, and that's going to be every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern time. So, yep. I don't know who's next. Is Fedor or James or Josh Gavant here? I don't think so.
I don't see any of them on the list. I guess that means I'm next. So I added v7 to the benchmarking jobs and benchmarking chart generation so that data is showing up on benchmarking.nodejs.org now. I'm slowly moving the coverage job along, removing the dependencies on external repo. I removed the dependency on NS external repo and did a small update based on a PR that had merged into core to remove some of the changes. Sort of the idea is we're going to do more of that to try and reduce the chances of conflicts messing up the job. Reviewed and commented on a number of issues, worked with Samson on the ABI stable node proof of concept. I started working on my benchmarking presentation for Node Interactive, and just generally reading and keeping up to date on issues. Next in the list is Julian, but I don't see him. Michael Rogers, Brian White.
James Snell just started viewing, so maybe he'll be in here in a minute.
Okay, Jen Turner. We'll just keep going down the list until we Seth Thompson, no. Shigeki, Stephen Loomis, no. Michael Zazo.
I think James is in here now.
Yeah.
Miles?
Hey, I think Michael Zasso was here.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Michael.
No, I made that up. Okay, it's just me.
Okay.
So this week released v4.6.2 yesterday. I managed some discussions yesterday with community members upset about the buffer deprecation around our release process and revert policy, and trying to, broker a conversation there so that we can manage expectations and get people on the same page. Onboarded a new collaborator onto Canary in the Goldmine. and I've been chasing a weird bug that could either be living in spawn wrap or child process. I'm not sure yet. I'm getting pretty deep into it right now, trying to figure out what's going on. Next up would be Sac3Pian.
Hi. This week I was doing some Makefile improvements, and there was a bug in buffer module, so I submitted a patch. Apart from that, general code reviews. That's it.
Okay, next is Trevor Norris. I don't think he's here, nor is Rich. I think that comes to the end of the list, but we can loop back to James.
Yeah, I've just been focusing on the HTTP2 implementation primarily. Little bit of PR triage, but not very much. That's it for me.
Okay, so I'm just going to note that down on HTTP2 work. Okay. Right, so next we will move on to a review of the previous meeting's issues. Right, so CTC membership nomination for the fourth eye, I think that just passed, if I remember correctly. I'm going to open that up and confirm. We can just, I don't think in that case there's nothing more to talk about. Sorry, just opening that issue to... Yep, so it's closed, okay. The next issue was 9279, the discussion of make string global equals object global. We actually had a vote on that and closed that, so that as well, that's done as well. Then the consider folding TSC into CTC 146. I think, Rod gave us a little bit of an, overview of what he was looking for in terms of feedback, but not too much discussion. So back to GitHub. Meeting schedule, so issue 22. I don't think there's was anything, I think we closed on that one in the meeting, although there is a new proposal out there for going forward, so if you haven't seen that, go take a look. And then I think the review, how CTC review process is working, I think we just agreed to, push that, give it more time, push it forward, and then we'll come back to look at that. So that was the previous meeting review. Anybody else have any comments on that front? Okay, I'll take that as a no. So let's move on to the agenda for this week. We only have two issues on the agenda. The first one is roadmap WG status, which is issue number 16. Generally, the discussion there is that the roadmap working group is like is a chartered working group, but isn't really a working group in terms of people actively working as a working group. The suggestion was that it actually should just be collapsed down into a team. So we'd have a team of that people can be notified if they're interested in particular issues that relate to that, but to de-charter the actual work group itself. I think in the issue we have 6 CTC members who are already in favor and none that are opposed. So we need 4 more Node.js CTC folk to approve it, or people to object to sort of derail that process. So looking at the people who have already approved in terms of who's here, it includes James, myself, Fishrock, Chalker, Evan Lucas, and Trott. So I guess, if people who are in the meeting now could actually go to the issue and, vote, I guess, yeah, add their LGGM. I see that Miles did that. I'm just looking to see if we have enough additional people that we could actually get to quorum to...
Does anyone actually understand, how this works? Because I guess we can, revoke the charter on what it's responsible for, but we can't really dissolve the group, so that's like a different thing. So the people that are in the group need to dissolve it, essentially. And then, I don't know, like, do we, like, is it necessary for us to revoke it? I don't really understand how this is actually done.
I think my understanding would be it could go one of two ways. The group could decide to dissolve themselves, although not being an active group, that might be a bit tougher. The other way is, I believe the CTC could revoke the charter, in which case, it's no longer an official working group. Any group of people is free to meet and discuss and do things, but in terms of having delegated responsibility, it would remove that particular aspect. I think what we need to come to is the agreement that enough people believe, as suggested, that the working group itself really doesn't need to exist. I don't think there's been any objections in the issue. It sounds like if we had the alternative. So I think.
I mean, I guess since there's only like 4 people in it anyway, and like 3 of those 4 people have already like given their approval to dissolve it, I guess, then like the quickest way to make forward is just like to revoke it.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, so I think if we just have enough people, we should vote on it and come to conclusion. We have already 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so we need 4 new. We only need 3 more people to actually say yes, that's the right way to go. I think we've already had. Well, actually, no, we've already got 2 more people. So I think it's 1 more person, 2 more people. Do we have anybody here who hasn't commented? I'm just going to go through the list. So I think that Previan, you haven't voted there yet.
Yeah, I'm just reading through that.
Sure. Yeah.
Just give me a moment.
And I guess
And I just voted
Colin,
for it.
you haven't voted yet either. And Anna. That's so I think we have enough. Okay, I see Colin and Anna. So okay, so I think we've got the 4 new people, so I think we'll declare that we don't need an official vote. Well, I guess. Yeah, actually, that one I'm not as sure on. I think we've got enough consensus here that says we need to do it. We don't have enough people in the actual meeting to formally vote. So I think we'll leave it to the people the CTC members who effectively voted in the issue, and if we can close it based on that, that's good. Otherwise, if we need a formal vote, we'll have to loop back when we have more people in the actual meeting. So that was the first issue. Gonna flip back to the next one. Okay, the next one was a discussion of issue 8169, which is hard deprecate calling buffer without new. The issue is actually closed. I think the discussion item, Rich added this, and the idea was, should we actually remove the deprecation warning in 7, and maybe try later on, but at this point basically agree we're not going to do it anytime in the near future, so remove the deprecation. I think there are a few people called out as being generally in favor. I don't know, James, if you want to say anything on that front.
Not really. It just seems. I know it's a larger discussion about what we need to do here, but I think at least for the near term in 7, we should revert and then revisit in 8 once we have a little more discussion. if for no other reason than just, to signal to the community that we're, still willing to discuss and look at the ramifications of these kind of changes.
Right. Is anybody opposed to that suggestion? I can actually open up the issue itself because I know there was some discussion there.
I'm not sure about the buffer without new deprecation, but the buffer constructor itself, as for deprecating the buffer constructor itself, it's another issue that got also some discussion and some unhappy voices there. I actually think that we should deprecate it in the next version completely. Because it's the only way to fix the security issues in the ecosystem. I'm still collecting data on that. I hope to finish it by this meeting, but it's not done yet, so I suggest we
Sorry, you dropped off there. That was Chalker speaking?
Yeah, are you still there? Yeah.
It looks like we lost him from the meeting. Maybe he'll rejoin.
By the way, you're typing the notes into the wrong section.
Okay. Right,
Isn't
okay.
pull request 7152 the one that we should be looking at, not 8169?
I'm just taking a look. Okay, that wasn't the one, perhaps. So what's the... It looks very similar. What's the...
I pasted a link in the chat channel. 7152.
Right, okay. Because 8169 was a light version of 7152.
Yeah, so unfortunately the discussion has spread across those both threads. 7152 is completely deprecating the buffer constructor whether called without new or not. And 8169 is just without new, which is what we have landed. But yeah, I guess Chalker has made his opinion clear in both threads, I guess.
Right, and that's into master. I think the discussion that Rich wanted to have was in 7, should we revert the warning, because we don't think it's going to happen in an upcoming one, and if we're going to do that, we should do that sooner than later, because you don't want to have that, stretch out and then revert it late in the 7 cycle.
Can someone give a quick summary of why it should be reverted?
So the basic argument is that there's existing modules in the ecosystem that are using buffer without new. Those developers do not want to change their code, to go back and go through the work of updating their modules and dependencies to add the new keyword. They just want to leave the modules alone, and they don't want core to touch the buffer constructor APIs in any way. That if we want to change buffer later on to make it, base it on ES6 classes or change the implementation API requirements, that we would create a new API instead of touching buffer. Basically, they just want us to leave it alone and not touch it.
Okay, the never change anything ever again argument. I just updated all my code yesterday, so I personally don't really care anymore.
Yeah, I guess Chalker was saying he was gathering more information, I think it sounded like, right?
So is the pain point here like people's tests that are like failing because of warnings? Is that like the?
I don't think so. I think it's just like people perceive the warnings that are written to a standard error, perceive them as bugs or just unnecessarily disruptive. That's a word that has been used a lot, but I can see why that is the case.
There are some cases where printing the warning is broken tests because those tests are looking at the SPD error out to determine success, and because there's something new there, it fails. There are module owners who are getting bug reports because some dependency deep in their chain is printing these deprecation warnings. And so they're getting bug reports to them, and they don't want to deal with them. They basically don't see any reason for it to be deprecated at all. So they just don't want to see it. They don't have to deal with it.
So the question is, do we think it's disruptive enough to roll it back?
Yeah, and that's really the question. Is it enough of a concern that we need to revert this and not go down the path of deprecating this constructor?
I mean, what I've just been told isn't like super compelling. So, is there someone here that feels like stronger about this, or like they can like articulate those concerns a little bit better? Like, I haven't really had time to read through all of those threads. I mean, I think like disrupting the community like hugely is like not really a good thing, but I think like this is probably still a good goal in the end.
Yeah,
whenever that end might be, could be years from now. I don't know.
Yeah,
the argument 100% is just don't touch it because they don't see any need for us to touch it.
Yeah, there has been a lot of talk about like Node's job is to remain stable. That is basically what it is supposed to do. Like keep code running that has been written already. I would say, to answer your question, I would say I feel strongly enough to say, yeah, we should definitely listen to these people who obviously use Node in a very different way than we core maintainers do.
I don't know. Like I said, I updated our code base yesterday. It was all of 10 minutes of work. I personally don't see the issue here.
To me, I think the biggest thing is like people's, like what Anna was saying, people's concerns of us just breaking stuff to break stuff. So maybe we are not messaging why it's important to remove this in the first place as well as we should be.
I know last time we tried that, like people didn't believe us. So
yeah, that happens a lot. And I've explained on a number of occasions that there are some architectural and performance enhancements that can be made if we simplify the implementation. And it's like, well, just create a new API then. Don't touch what's there. Right?
Yeah, so but that's kind of right.
Explaining it. The response is they don't. The people that want this reverted don't care about the improvements that can be made. Is if they have to change their code. They don't want to have to do the work to change their code.
Yeah, or I guess deal with, it changes in other modules that even they may not be able to make.
So is there anyone here who feels that's a strong argument?
I may not be able to articulate the points that the people that are commenting from outside of core to articulate that as well, but I definitely find them very convincing. And yeah, basically, I think we are not that good at keeping in mind that people who use the core, who use them and are not here in this conference, use it very differently and have different perspective. And I mean, I guess it's pretty easy for most people to update their code, but there are hundreds of thousands of modules that probably use buffer in some way. Maybe not in the way we've broken it, but yeah, their perspective is important here.
Yeah, and I think we should value stability. The question is, in this case, I guess it would come down to it's always that trade-off of, you don't want to never change anything because then you're going to stagnate, but tend to try not to change things unless there's a really good reason. And is this, is it a matter of messaging that we haven't done that, or is it that, that really there is another way to do it that could achieve the same goals, I guess, too, is the other thing to consider.
Excuse me. Did something happen to my audio connection? I tried to say something on this issue, and I think that I got disconnected.
Yeah, you
Yep.
were. Yep. Welcome back. So I think the last thing we heard was you were still gathering more information.
Was that at the start of it or at the end of it? Because I think I mentioned that 2 times.
Okay. Well, why don't you just restart?
Oh. You suggest me to restart, yes?
Well, yeah. Just pick up from the beginning, and I think that's probably the best bet.
Okay. That was. I didn't notice when I got disconnected. Not sure why that happened. Okay. So I wanted to say that there are a lot of packages that I saw that are using new buffer constructor in an unsafe way. It's about 5 to 10%, I think. And that causes security issues for the users, and they are not able to notice that something wrong is happening without the deprecation warning. So the only way how we could notify the user that some packages use an unsecure IP is deprecation warning. And there are really a large amount of packages that have issues that could become security issues when used in some other way. For example, a lot of packages do base 64 encoding via new buffer, and if a number gets passed to that base 64 encoding function, then everything blows up. And for example, if a user gets typed input from for example, if some server gets typed input from the user and passes that to base64 encoding function, then that is actually two vulnerabilities, one of which is memory leak, I mean sensitive information leak, and the second one is DOS.
Nikita, quick clarification, please. What you're describing, is that because of the lacking new, because there's no new keywords?
No, yeah. Oh, I think that I was cut earlier than I thought. I am saying not about the new keyword and have no specific opinion on whether we should deprecate the new keyword sooner than the whole thing, as it has been already done. But I think that we should deprecate both of them in the next major version, and I'm strong in favor of that. I mean, deprecating new buffer constructor in version 8.
Okay, yeah, I see what you mean now. Sorry. So you want people to migrate to buffer.alloc and
Yes.
what's the other one? Okay, I understand.
There is just too many packages that use the old IP in an insecure way, and it's impossible to notify all the packages and send the security reports to everyone who does base64 encoding using new buffer. That's actually the list that I'm going to publish, and just to estimate the number of packages that do that. Moreover, I think that I tried to mention.
Sorry, could we fix that if we change the buffer constructor to zero fill by default? Basically, to make a new buffer equal to buffer.alloc.
We can't make. Actually, I would propose to do that at the same moment when we hard deprecate it. I would propose to zero fill by default in the exact same version that we chose to be hard deprecated, because of the same arguments against the zero filling by default that I already mentioned. If we start zero filling by default and people start using the IP, they will rely on the zero filling by default, and that would be not valid for the old versions. So whomever uses the new buffer constructor relying on the new zero filling by default and posts a model that does something, and then someone else takes an older version of Node and runs that code, that would lead to a very bad situation.
Right, I understand what you mean, but what we could do is that we release V4 and V6 versions that also start zero filling. I mean,
no, that won't help because a lot of users still use old point versions.
Right. Okay. So that, yeah. Okay, that's true.
So
those old point versions are already insecure though by default because of OpenSSL problems.
Exactly.
We don't want to cause new issues for the old versions.
I agree with Chaka's assessment of that point for sure. I agreed with that back when we did the original docs deprecation of it too.
Yeah, but we're
hard deprecated and then zero fill, then there are the situation when new code starts using the hard deprecated version would be very unlikely. So we could do that in fact with the hard deprecation.
I guess my biggest issue with it is that what does it matter if new is passed? If we're trying to get people to migrate away from the buffer API, the current API that we've had, then we should do that like in a hard break instead of it being like a step-by-step process of requiring new. All these people are just changing it to add new now, and then they're going to have to go back and change it when we actually deprecate the that method totally, and you have to use alloc and alloc unsafe.
Actually,
well,
not sure about that one. I think that we probably should have replicated them together in the next version.
Well, the part of the challenge here is that we cannot deprecate all uses of the buffer constructor, because there's the we have to retain the constructor that allows it to be a proper subclass of uint8 array, right? So there is a combination. Basically, any pattern of arguments that does not match the uint8 array class constructor would be
believe
deprecated.
that there is a pull request already filed that does the deprecation.
And the reason for the new, I mean, going back to when we had this conversation, I think it was back in August or something like that, was that the intent was to make internal implementation changes that would make buffer more performant, more reliable, and easier to maintain by making it a more proper subclass of uint8 array, which does require the new keyword when created. We have to do some tricks to make buffer without new work and have it still be a uint8 array subclass, right? So the idea was to simplify it and to take an incremental step by, okay, we're going to, phase out use of buffer without new, so we can make those changes, and then take a little bit more time to deprecate the buffer constructor in general, and push people towards alloc and alloc, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so and I think part of why there's a lot of pushback is that people, I feel like that wasn't communicated as why new is being removed.
It's been communicated, and it's been told that if we wanted to do that, create a new API, don't touch buffer. So all the feedback has been basically they don't care. So we want to make these changes.
I mean, you gotta okay, so if we're gonna go that far, we need to really analyze how many people are saying this, because there's gonna be people that yell at us for introducing something new too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they already have. I mean,
still
the complaints on the UL posters, right?
Well, I mean, should something like this have gone through an EPS or the EPS repo?
I don't think it would have made a difference. The same people would have been involved.
Yeah, true.
I still think that we should hard replicate in the next version, because it's the only way to notify users that they're using unsafe packages, or potentially unsafe packages. Even if there are 10% of such packages affected, then it's just a too large number. For example, I tried to tell about concat stream. Did that also not make it here? Okay, we'll just repeat. For the concat stream, if someone was writing a number into the stream, it turned into an unutilized memory chunk of such size. That happened to concat stream versions prior to 1.5.2. I sent them a private report about that. They disclosed it publicly on the same day and patched it 2 weeks later. And they fixed only the last version, while still a large number of packages depend on concat stream version 1.4 that is still unfixed, and they have no idea that, and the users that using the concat stream chain dependencies have no idea that the code is unsafe. So
problem solved if we start zero filling, right?
What?
Oh, sorry. I mean, problem solved if we start zero filling.
You mean the zero fill? No, the problem is not solved because there are actually 2 security issues. Zero fill fixes only one of those, and starting to zero fill causes another issue for older versions that I already mentioned. The one issue is the memory leak. I mean the sensitive information leak, and the second issue is a denial of service that is not fixed by zero fill-in. So for the users, the hard deprecation is actually not a bad choice, because in most cases they would just turn on the flag if they really hate the message, so that they would no longer see the hard deprecation message. It puts some burden on the maintainers, but maintainers should fix the security issues, and there seems to be no other way to completely phase out those security issues except for the hard deprecation.
I think my take is that that would be pretty rough, but it might be better for like the ecosystem.
Also, I estimate the actual time spent, I mean the total integral time spent by everyone, to be less if we hard deprecate things than if we start to, if several people start to review every package to find the various security issues and get that somehow to send private repos to the all the maintainers, get them to fix old versions, get all chains of dependencies to update, etc. That's just a too large amount of work, and hard deprecation is the only way that will somehow fix this with less amount of work.
So I'd like to clarify for anyone listening, that, and we should probably change our own messaging on this, but this is like a side note. By hard deprecation, we mean having a runtime deprecation warning.
Yes, a single runtime message. What I'm now doing is preparing a list of packages that could be affected or that are affected, just to collect the previous packages that were already notified of this issue and that were already fixed. To just show how many packages actually have security issues because of this, and also the other thing that I'm estimating is how many packages would have to be patched during this hard deprecation, and I'm going to make something readable by the next week, I think.
So one thing that I think would be very useful on this is I think that we should reach out to the individuals who are going to be affected by this, and maybe have them come in for the next CTC meeting or a future one in which they can join, to discuss their thought process on this, especially, you know, in response to what Chalker has brought up, because it seems like this direction is somewhat, you know, in the opposite direction. You know, people are already, you know, upset enough about a warning. If we take it further, that's gonna be, you know, more disruptive.
I mean, the plan was always to take it further. The question was just when. I'm not really sure that like 8 is necessarily the best target for that. Although I have seen some people say in those threads that like if it was about security, that they didn't really think that the new thing was about security. So if we did like the security thing, well, you know, that's a bit more more compelling of an argument. Which I mean, I don't think we'll really notice like a difference between the amount of people complaining about something that is or isn't a security issue that's like this, but
I think one of the biggest issues, which we haven't brought up yet, though, is that there are many modules that are being used that are not necessarily actively maintained. So, you know, if we do something as disruptive as getting rid of buffer and new buffer, we're just going to break a chunk of things. So it may be good to find out, you know, like what heavily dependent modules there are. Like, I think what may make a lot of sense is if we get the handful of people who have an opinion and who really care about this to legitimately outline what their concern is as far as time is concerned and ability to do things. We can maybe do some, you know, like real research, find out exactly what is possible and what isn't possible, what can be upgraded, what can't be upgraded, exactly how much time this is going to take, and come to an agreement if this is going to be possible or not. I'm still not entirely convinced that not simply just making buffer and new buffer zero fill and backporting that to 4 and 6 is not sufficient. I understand that we have other releases that would potentially make less secure, but I am less convinced of that academic need than the real problem of breaking the ecosystem.
And what about the denial of service?
Can you repeat the denial of service problem?
Even if we zero fill, then passing a number, a large enough number to the new buffer constructor would still be a denial of service.
Is that?
Yeah. But that's only when the application doesn't properly sanitize its inputs, right?
Sorry?
All of this is when the application doesn't properly sanitize its inputs.
Right. Is
Yeah,
there
exactly.
no way
Yes,
we can
but
do a check on that?
a lot of libraries do not sanitize input. For example, for base64 encoding, everything that does, a lot of libraries that do base64 encoding just cast a new input, and a lot of libraries export the base64 encoding function, and the users of those libraries do not expect that they should sanitize the input before passing that input to the base64 encoding function, and so everything blows up. So to clarify, I estimate the current situation in the ecosystem about in relation to the new buffer constructor as near catastrophic, and that the deprecation is the only way how we could fix it.
There's no way to address the other issue by adding a check on the size?
Sorry?
I was just wondering, there's no way to add a check ourselves on the size, and you know, the problem seems to be we'll take any size now. Is there a way we could say no, we're going to only take up to a certain size?
I don't think that I understand what you mean.
I don't think. I mean, the problem is like if you pass in 1,000 as a number versus 1,000 as a string, the buffer constructor does two different things. So, like, I mean, what if you want to create a buffer that's as large? I mean, how would you know whether or not it's because inputs weren't validated?
Yeah, I guess so it's not that the size will be some ridiculously large size, it's just you didn't expect to create a buffer of any size. Is that the...
I'm wondering if this would benefit from being discussed in a written format somewhere, like a new GitHub issue or something.
Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion because we're almost out of time for the meeting, and I don't think we're closing in on a consensus in terms of the right way to go. So I think you're right that taking it back to GitHub makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think the one thing we need, and I'm sorry I came in late, so this may have already this may have already happened, but I think the one thing we need is, you know, a clear, full summary of, you know, of what Nikita's explaining, because it seems like there's a lot of moving pieces, and sounds like it's easy to come up with a solution if you're only looking at one or two pieces, but if you're looking at the whole thing, maybe it's a little harder, maybe not. I don't know. We have to look at it, but.
One thing I just want to throw in quickly is that if we are not yet decided on how we want to move forward, that may be a good reason to consider reverting the warning that we have right now if we go another week or two without coming to some sort of conclusion.
Okay, so I think at this point we are running out of time. So is it that we should create a new issue, or should we continue the discussion in the existing issue that was, maybe it sounds like we need an issue which is to revert that warning so that we can have that discussion, and it's also the point where, Miles can make the point that, well, we should just do this and as we discuss.
I think a short-term issue for reverting is one thing, and then I think unless there's an existing issue that has all the information, perhaps creating a new issue in the CTC repository might be worth doing. It sounds like Anna might have something to say.
Yeah, just exactly what you said. Like we should mix those discussions, like reverting for now and whatever we want in the long term.
Do you have any volunteers for opening those issues?
I can do the revert.
Okay.
The thing about reversion is that the original problem that why people unhappy is that we hard duplicated the buffer without explaining that it is a security issue, and that we split the buffer deprecation into two parts: the buffer without new deprecation and then the buffer with new deprecation in some later version. And two changes are just now seems that two changes are just too many for the people, and we should have deprecated it at one time. But the thing is, would it cause more disruption if we deprecate it and then undeprecate it and then deprecate it again in the next version?
Right. I think we should have that discussion in the short-term reversion. I think we're at the point where we have 2 minutes left. Everybody is GitHub and moving on. I think we'll have to move on. Assuming we have
Hello?
no,
Oh, there we go.
no. Okay, so any
Okay, so
questions
something
on
weird
the-
happened to my connection, and I think I dropped some audio to the stream. I'm not really sure. So there was like some comments in chat. Someone says, "Hi, please make Node.js faster like C++." So JavaScript is like not like a compiled language in that way, so it probably will never be as fast. But JITs are quite fast these days. I don't know if anyone else has comments on that.
Yeah, I think exactly. It's like you said. It's you know the browsers do a lot of work for optimizing and you know so that.
Someone asks, what will the future of Node? What will be the future of Node when compared to Java?
World domination, obviously.
I mean, I'm not sure if, like, any of us really have like a good answer to that either. Like, they're different languages.
Yeah, I
They
think
use completely different paradigms.
Yeah, and I think they each have their strengths and weaknesses, and so for particular use cases, you know, one may shine.
That's like about all I'm seeing.
Jeremiah, are you able to hear us?
Yeah, we.
Okay. Loads of tech diff. I think we should just. Keep going.
Okay, so I think we're you know we're at the end of the time. Had a few of those questions. Maybe those are ones where I don't know. Do we have a good place to suggest somebody to ask those questions? Is there like a particular info?
Not really.
No. Okay. So in terms of upcoming meetings, CTC is November 16th is next meeting. TSC November 10th is the next meeting. Build diagnostics. Diagnostics actually I believe is November 15th. Benchmarking is TBD, but there is an issue to schedule the next meeting if you're interested. And LTS postmortem and API, there aren't any formally scheduled meetings, although if you are interested in the ABI stable work going on in the API work group, if you look in the ABI stable node repo, there is a weekly meeting where things are discussed, so you're interested, you can attend that. Otherwise, I think that's it for our meeting this week. Thanks for everybody attending and listening in.
Thanks.
Okay. And Jeremiah, I guess you can drop the live stream.